It's Thursday, February 12th, 2026. So, yesterday there was a pretty high profile hearing with one of the most indisputably evil figures within our current government, Attorney General Pam Bondi. Now, from a Minnesota perspective, this bleach blonde living ghoul is directly responsible for some of the most gross miscarriages in justice here in Minnesota. Notably, she is responsible for directing federal prosecutors in the Department of Justice to try and investigate and prosecute Renee Good's widow and Alex Preddy after they were both extrajudicially murdered by the federal government. They still have no indication of any federal investigations trying to find justice for their killers, but they have been besmirched and attacked by our Department of Justice. This atrocious weaponization of our federal justice apparatus against victims of state-sponsored federal crime was directly responsible for the mass resignation of federal prosecutors who were actively working on Minnesota Health and Human Services fraud cases. The main focus of the hearing yesterday, however, was on a topic even more insidious than the gross miscarriage of justice here in Minnesota. They were about the Epstein files. The Epstein files are still at top of mind for the nation as a whole, and we saw some pretty damning testimony on C-SPAN yesterday as Bondi was deposed by the House of Representatives. Most of the coverage was extremely polarized upon party lines, but there are a few segments that I'm linking below and I'm going to cover that I think are absolutely worth watching. First and foremost, watch Thomas Massie. He's the only Republican who seems to have any decency or morals left in the House of Representatives, and his testimony was perhaps the most important to watch. Now, I'm no stranger to living in a world where the number of moral Republican representatives can be counted on one hand, and it seems like, unfortunately, today I can count them on one finger. But Massie's testimony was incredibly easy to follow and directly focuses on a document that was released as part of the recent 3 million Epstein files released. He focuses on an email specifically titled Epstein Victims List. Wasn't hard to find among those 3 million documents, and he points out very clearly that every one of the victims' identities and names on that email were unredacted when they released the files. Anybody who was going in to look at the Epstein files could clearly and easily see a concise list of those people who had been victimized. And while the Department of Justice had claimed that they were redacting all victims' information, and that's why it took them several months to release the files, we can clearly see that that was a lie. Thomas Massie's testimony is clear, concise, and frankly indefensible. If you're just going to watch 5 minutes, watch his. But if you're going to watch more, there's a 10-minute clip from Jamie Raskin, which is also really indicative of the hearing overall and definitely worth watching. His testimony is powerful because of the 10 Epstein victims seated directly behind Bondi during the hearing. And it should be noted that that is just 10 of over 1,000 people who fit that description of living, surviving Epstein victims. Bondi refuses to even look at the victims seated directly behind her, as she is accurately described as running, quote, a massive Epstein cover-up right out of the Department of Justice. He tears into exactly how she failed to meet the legal obligations of the Epstein Transparency Act, even as she fails to show any shred of decency or humanity. She responds with an absolutely unhinged response, talking about the current price of the Dow Jones, because making money for the rich is far more important for her than justice for the 10-plus rape victims that she refused to even look at, who were sitting directly behind her. Third, Ted Lieu's testimony is important because I believe she actually perjures herself during his questioning. He starts with a very recognizable video of Epstein and Trump partying together, and then asks Bondi directly whether there were any underage girls at that party or any party that she knew of through the Epstein files where the two of them were present. She is caught out, denies it, and then is directly shown proof that she is lying. This one really sticks with me because her conduct under oath should immediately qualify her for high crimes. It is set to be another spicy C-SPAN day today. Tom Homan just gave what appeared to be a mission accomplished speech at a press conference this morning at the Whipple building, but frankly, we on the ground will believe that when we see it. There's also a press conference that is either still ongoing or just wrapping up in the US Senate that I'm going to be watching next in its entirety because it's really focused on the conflicting narratives between Minnesota state leaders who have been giving actual, true to the ground recounts of what's going on in this state and federal officials who have been complicit in one of the largest and most frustrating gaslighting campaigns that I've ever had to live through. All that to say, it's fitting then tonight is the first meeting with my local DFL, getting prepared for upcoming local conventions. As I said, when I went caucusing, I did sign up for a few committees, so I'm pretty excited to kind of play that one out. It is really good to see some focus from Minnesota again in the news here, but there's definitely a lot of work to be done on the ground, and frankly, I don't know that I've ever been more motivated to just get my hands in and start trying to do some work to set us up for good in the long term, even as we still watching to see how things settle down in the short term. Take care.